So, our first author today is Kit de Waal. Kit was born in Birmingham to an Irish mother who was a childminder and a foster carer, and a Caribbean father. She worked for 15 years in criminal and family law and was a magistrate for several years before publishing her debut novel, My Name is Leon, which was shortlisted for the Costa and won the Irish Book of the Year award. Set in the early 80s, this novel is a powerful and deeply compelling tale of identity, love, loss, and the fierce bond between siblings. Kit has also published short stories, flash fiction, and essays. And today, she'll be reading an extract of her story, Exterior Paint, which was written with the help of Arvar Jewell, a trade unionist who invited an unlikely guest to visit an otherwise ordinary terrace street in Smethwick near Birmingham in February 1965. So it's my great pleasure. So can you all please put your hands together while I introduce Kit de Waal.
So it's Birmingham, 1965, and the main character in this story, Alphonse, has just left the Blue Gate pub in Smethwick, where there's a colour bar. Blacks have to drink in a certain part of the pub, and he's just been told off by one of the barmaids. And he's left and he's walking home. Alphonse hears the tip of a woman's shoe behind him, and when he turns, it's the barmaid. He waits at the corner under the lamplight, and she catches up. "You left this," she says, and holds his hat in her hand. "Oh," he touches his hair and then shakes his head. "I'm not myself this evening." "Who are you normally then? Shall I call for a policeman?" If she hadn't smiled, he would have backed away. Only last week he heard that someone, an Indian man, smacked a barmaid across the face and was being hunted by the police for assault. Alphonse wasn't there and doesn't know if it's true. But isn't this how trouble starts, with the pretty face of innocence and the sound of laughter? He puts his hand out for his hat, but she perches it on her blonde beehive and laughs again. "Does it suit me?" "Yes," he says. And instead of taking it off her, he taps it down at an angle so that she looks like one of the girls that dance with Gene Kelly or Fred Astaire. She spins around as though she can read his mind, and when she stops, he reaches out to steady her. "Whoops," she says, and grabs his arm. There is a moment then in Alphonse Maynard's life when his world tilts and he understands that something has changed. "You better walk me home," she says, and keeps her hand on his arm, directing him all the way to Marshall Street. "But I live on this street," he says, and she winks at him. "Yes, I know." She tells him that she lives there with her mother and her sister on the posh bit of the road that bends around the corner, number 75. And that when Alphonse and his friends moved in, she went to have a look. Everyone was talking about it. A house full of single men, single black men, 4 at least, getting up to who knows what. While Lilian watched the house, she saw Alphonse open the front door and button his coat. And just like Alphonse's world tilted when she took his arm, Lilian told him later that her world tilted in direct proportion to the angle of his trilby as he put it on and nudged it to the side. That night, they stop at the corner and Alphonse kisses Lilian on the cheek. They both look around in case they are seen, and then Lilian kisses him back. "We'll have to keep quiet about this," she said, "and be careful. My mum's a bit prejudiced." Alphonse agrees. The being careful bit is harder than they expect. Sometimes on a dark night, they twist suddenly into an entry between the terraced houses and kiss for so long that it's all Alphonse can do not to ravage Lilian there and then. He feels her slender body beneath her coat, the soft pressure of her bosom, her heart against his, and he wants her like food. After 6 weeks, Lilian has an idea. You go home, Alphonse. I finish at the Blue Gate. I'll go to my house, pretend to go to bed, and slip out when no one's looking. Alphonse says nothing. It was Lilian's sister that got the slap in the face from the Indian man she refused to serve. The man is still wanted by the police. There are slogans daubed on brick walls telling black people to go home. There are demonstrations by the Indian Workers' Association about the colour bar at the Blue Gate. And, to top it all, Marshall Street itself is in the papers for being too full of black people. You don't want a nigger for a neighbour, is the headline. And Lilian's mother is involved somehow, part of a local crowd pushing the council for an all-white street. Alphonse knows what happens in America. Black men are beaten with clubs, burned alive, hung from trees, and for a lot less than sex with a white woman. This wasn't the time to let the tilt for Lilian topple him headlong into his coffin. But then again, when she kisses him, touches him, and says his name. All right, he says, I'll wait at the window. Don't knock. I'll watch for you and I'll come down. On Friday, it works like a dream. On Saturday, the same. On Sunday night, when Lilian finishes early, she lies down on her bed and falls asleep. Alphonse waits at the window until 1:30 and then oversleeps for work. On Monday night, not a day they plan to see one another, he hears shrapnel against his window just before midnight. She's grinning up at him and he takes the stairs 2 at a time. I missed you, he says, and pulls her up the staircase. They make love under his pink candlewick bedspread and lie in the dark with their cigarettes, her in his arms, pale and soft. I'm going to tell her, says Lilian. We're not doing anything wrong. No, he says, not yet. Christmas comes. Lilian tells him that her mother has the house full of visitors and there's not a moment Lilian can call her own. If she's not working at the Blue Gate, she's washing up or making meals. She has one cousin walking her home, another sleeping in the same bed, someone by her side day and night. Alphonse doesn't see Lilian for 3 whole days, and he begins to wonder if she will forget about him, like he has forgotten about his woman in St. Kitts. Alphonse spends Christmas Day and Boxing Day with the other boarders, sitting around their kitchen table trying to recreate the festivities of home without good rum, without fruitcake, without pepper and garlic for the small ham on a dry, pallid bone, without stew peas and rice, and for the first time in Alphonse's life, without the white heat of the sun. But Lilian hasn't forgotten him. Stones scoff the window at midnight on Boxing Day, and he crushes his lips on hers. Lilian is dressing one February evening when she sits down suddenly on the bed and covers her face with her hands. My mum knows, she says. Alphonse sits up. He doesn't reach for her or tell her not to worry. He doesn't bundle her up and kiss her face. In that moment, Alphonse thinks of himself and of the viciousness of the mother he has heard about for 3 long months, of her scheming with others on the street to get the blacks out and put the niggers back where they belong on the boat home. He reads the papers each day now and listens closely to the news on the radio because everyone in the foundry, Indians, Pakistanis, West Indians, talk about how bad it is and whether it can get any worse, whether it could get like America with the Ku Klux Klan, lynchings, segregation, assassinations. Lilian raises her head and looks at him. She knows Alphonse. She's furious with me. She was screaming some terrible things. Alphonse lights a cigarette and lays his arm on Lilian's shoulder. Don't worry, Lily. She said I was a slut, Alphonse. She said I was cheap. Lilian wipes her eyes and grabs his hand. What should we do? We have to be more careful, that's all. Careful. Yes, Lily. Watch our step. I don't want no trouble. Lilian stands up straight. I see. She pulls the belt tight on her mackintosh and feeds her slender feet into her stiletto heels. She ties her headscarf and places her handbag neatly in the crook of her arm. When you're ready to be a man, Alphonse Maynard, you know where to find me. Alphonse goes to speak, but the door slams so hard he's worried it will wake the house and give the game away, if there is any game left. Alphonse sleeps not one single minute of that night. He squeezes his eyelids together and lies as still as his body will allow, but peace can't find him. Lily has gone. Morning comes and Alphonse doesn't move. His alarms, and he throws the blasted thing to the ground. Lily has left him. He smokes cigarette after cigarette until his mouth begs for water. It's Friday, payday. Alphonse has missed his first ever day of work. He sits up in bed and peels back the curtains. The road is quiet. He looks at the corner where he first kissed Lilian and wonders if he will ever get to kiss her again. He has to get her back. Then Alphonse notices at the top of the road a big group of men have gathered, some with notebooks, some with cameras. Standing in the middle of the group is a tall black man in a hat and glasses. Alphonse pushes his head out of the window as far as he can without tumbling to the ground. Can't be, he whispers. Just can't be. There are 2 Indian men at the corner and a black woman too. Can't be. Alphonse is dressed in his trousers, shirt and socks in 75 seconds. He has his arms in the sleeve of his coat as he opens the front door. He stands at the gate and looks to the top of the road and the apparition. Cannot be. Then suddenly the black man walks away from the crowd, just him alone. He comes down Marshall Street looking left and right at the houses, at the for sale sign in the window, and the group at the top stand and watch. Someone is filming. And if they are filming this thing, says Alphonse out loud, it's because it is true. The man gets closer and closer, and as he walks past Alphonse, their eyes meet, black man to black man. And again, Alphonse feels a shift in his world. The black man walks to the corner of the road and Alphonse has to follow. Malcolm X, his heart says, over and over, Malcolm X. A group of women are waiting for him at number 77, a group of white women, and with them, Lilian's mother. They stand in the front garden and shout, waving their arms and pointing, "Go back home. We don't want blackies here. Get out of our country." Malcolm X doesn't turn his head and he doesn't answer, doesn't break his stride nor cower. It's as if he can't hear them, like he's thinking his own thoughts, just a man out for a stroll on a winter's afternoon. He doesn't jeer, he doesn't call names, nothing. When Malcolm X goes back to the group at the top of the road, he faces a camera and speaks. Alphonse can't hear what he says, but he knows it will be in the paper, it will be in the news, it will be all over the world. Malcolm X came to Marshall Street, walked strong with his back straight and his head high. The men slowly pack up their things, put their notebooks away, and then they are gone. Alphonse goes back inside and straight to the kitchen. "Malcolm X," he says. He puts the kettle to boil and plugs in the iron. He came to England in a good suit and tie. He brings it out of the wardrobe, holds it up to the light. Yes. He cleans the nicotine from his teeth and shaves carefully, closely, until his skin complains. He takes a clothes brush to the overcoat and buffs a shine on his shoes. Yes, man, Malcolm X. He puts on his trilby. He nudges it down at an angle over his eye, and he will never know if he really heard the next words, but in his heart they are clear and true. "Do it, Alphonse," said Malcolm X. "Go and do it." Lilian is behind the bar at the blue gate. Alphonse stands in the doorway and shouts. The talking stops. The drinking stops. "Come, Lily," he shouts. Men look from him to her and back to him. Alphonse doesn't turn his head. He can't see them. Come! She darts into the back, grabs her coat and skips across the carpet. He pulls her by the hand past Dibble Road and Topsham Road over Holly Lane, all the way to number 75, and he says nothing. By the time he rings the bell, they are both panting. I've got a key, Lilian whispers, but before she can get it out, the door opens. Lilian's mother. She folds her arm, opens her mouth, but Alphonse is quick. Your daughter has come for her things, says Alphonse, calm, like Malcolm X. Go on, Lily, and then give your mother your key. You won't need it again. Lilian slips past and the woman gasps. Lilian and me will be married next week, says Alphonse. We would like you to come. Curtains move in the front windows of all the houses along Marshall Street, women up and down the road and in the shops and in the pubs and the clubs and the laundrettes would talk for many years about the time a black man fronted Lilian's mother and got the better of her. Alphonse would always remind people that Lilian's mother did try and speak, but he held up his hand, palmed to her face and said simply, no. Alphonse carried Lilian's little suitcase and a lightness in his heart that never left until Lily died.